How's everyone doing? I'm so excited to be here. I've got it's going to sound like nerves for a minute, but I know it's just adrenaline because I'm so excited. So here we go. I'm going to talk to you today. Maybe I'm going to talk to all of us today. Don't break the web. Now, at first, we wrote code, saved the file, FTP'd it to the server, checked it in the browser, repeated it. This is how I built websites in 1997 when I started building websites. Maybe some of you remember those days. I don't know. Really glad they're gone. Yeah, woohoo. All right, cool. So, yeah, now it's a bit different, isn't it? We can create an entirely new application with one command. And thanks to really cool tools like Ember CLI deploy, even deploying is just one command. And when I use Netlify, I can deploy with a button. That is so cool. We've come a long way from the days when we needed to know how to set up a server, because that was the only way to get our content online. I didn't want to be a full-stack developer. I just kind of accidentally was, because you had to. We got HTML in 1991. We got our first browser in 1993. And we got Ember in 2011. Yeah. Woo! But, y'all, it is, it's 2019, and we have a problem. The web is broken. Now, you're like, Bill, we've learned all these cool things today, and we're doing better than ever before. But I have some hard news for us. But it's OK. We can get through this together, I promise. In February, the WebAIM project at Utah State University published an accessibility analysis of the top 1 million homepages on the internet. Now, the data that came back to us was not a surprise to anyone who's been working in the accessibility space, but it was a little bit disheartening, because the extent was, well, let's talk about it. Tonight, when you go home, I want you to look up this website and read the full report for yourself. But right now, we're going to go through some of the best bits, I'd like to say. So these websites were analyzed with automated accessibility checkers that are already available for us to use in our browsers today. And this is what we found. 1 million websites. OK, come on. You can do it. OK. 59,653,607 distinct accessibility errors. Let that sink in. That's an average of almost 60 errors per page. 97.8% of websites had accessibility errors on them. Boom, right? Your mind just exploded a little bit. I know mine did when I read this. Now, it's an even more dismal story if a JavaScript framework was involved. Ember is a little bit less dismal than perhaps our counterparts, as you can see here. And you won't see Ember mentioned in the report, but I emailed them separately and asked them for our number, because I wanted us to have it. I know, I'm so generous. But we also know that single-page apps aren't going anywhere, right? I mean, we're all here because we believe that. I absolutely adore Ember, and I adore the freedom it gives me to build things quickly and not have to know how to set up a server. That's awesome. I don't know about you. It's But here's the thing. In all of our intent to do good, to be clever, to make this easier for ourselves, we have sort of become the problem because we've moved the web backwards. The presence of a JavaScript framework indicated a higher number of accessibility errors. So I want us to stop and think a minute and talk about what that means. We did this by allowing ourselves to forget, and because we forgot, the people who came behind us didn't even know it was important. We forgot the important things. We need to ask ourselves, are we focused on the right things? We focused on performance, but did we forget that we could get performance enhancements or improvements from using semantic HTML? Did we forget that part? Did we never know it? I don't know. We should think about that. 85% of the websites analyzed had low contrast text. 68% of websites had missing alt text on their images. 58% of websites had empty links. I'm pretty sure every single JavaScript engineer at some point in their life is guilty of putting an empty link. You meant to use a button. Instead, you used a link to toggle something. We've all been there. We've all done it. Oops. 53% of websites had missing labels on their input fields. It's a label. It doesn't have to be this way. 33% of websites were missing the document language attribute. Screen readers need this information to know which language to use for the user with assistive technology. 100% of these issues are preventable. Our tooling could prevent every single one of the most common accessibility issues on the web today. Now, why aren't we doing this? I think it's worth a good hard look at ourselves and a good hard look at our tooling to ask, why haven't we flipped that switch yet? Why haven't we make it so like other things break our builds when they do the wrong thing, right? This could do that. So what's preventing us from doing that? The thing is, I think that there are too many reasons that we give ourselves. There are too many reasons that we speak out loud for why we avoid flipping the switch, for why we avoid making sure we build accessible applications. And y'all know me. If we want to improve something, we're going to talk about it directly. So right now, we're going to buckle in, and we're going to talk about a few of these reasons, and maybe some ways to shift our mindset so we can innovate in a more inclusive way. Big excuse I hear. My client didn't ask for accessibility. Yeah, our clients don't ask us for a lot of things, do they? If you think about it, if you think about all the things you need to know on a day-to-day basis to successfully ship a website or an application, now I want you to think about if your client has asked you for every single one of those things. No, they didn't. I know they didn't. So we're going to talk about cookies now. I'm going to ask you to imagine something with me for a minute. You are having the best day of your life. You're walking down the street. It is your perfect weather. Imagine that for a second. Like whatever your perfect weather is. For me, it's sunshine. For my son, it's like cloudy weather. Hi, Dylan. And you're walking down the street in your perfect weather, and you're really happy, and you look and you see in a bakery window the most perfect, yummy cookie you've ever seen in your entire life. So you go into the bakery, and you buy the cookie, and you take a bite of this cookie. And think about what you're expecting that cookie to taste like when you bite into it. But after you take the bite, you realize there's no sugar in that cookie. So you demand a refund for the baker, and you're like, why didn't you put sugar in my cookie? And they're like, you didn't ask for sugar. And I really think that this is a good metaphor for accessibility, because our clients are not going to ask us to put the sugar in the cookie. We should know, as the bakers, That is what a cookie requires. I mean, don't even come at me with the sugarless cookie thing either, because I will put you on a timeout or something. Another argument I hear is implementing accessibility is just too hard. You guys and girls and everyone else. We're JavaScript engineers. We have done some really amazing things. And so I thought it would be good if we talked about some things that are genuinely hard to do. What is hard? Accessibility is hard. Is it real? So what are some things that can maybe help us shift our mindset to think hard things to do? I have some ideas. Putting a human in outer space is a very hard thing to do. Walking into Mordor, also a very hard thing to do. And if you're anything like me, keeping plants alive. My cats can tell me when they're hungry. My son can tell me when he's hungry. Plants cannot, therefore they die in my house. That's just the way it is. These are hard things. I don't think accessibility is. I think it's complex. I think there's nuance. But I don't think that this should prevent us from doing the things that we already know we can do. There are things we already know we can do. We should do them. We have proven in Ember that we can start to solve a hard problem by taking small pieces of it that we know how to do now and iterate towards a better, more cohesive, more inclusive solution. This is our final frontier, friends. This is where we are right now. And the thing about accessibility is, it already has rules. It already has a specification. And I tell you what, if you look through these rules, you'll see that they even cover Flash. Like, that's how long it's been around. Last week, I was at the Assistive Technology Conference in Anaheim, the 34th annual conference for assistive technology. The web's only 30, y'all. Like, okay. But now we know. Now, I know some of you, because I've hung out. We've had drinks. We'll have more. We might need one after this talk. You might be thinking, well, this is not an Ember issue. Yeah, it is. And we're already doing things about it that lead me to believe it genuinely is. So this is what you'd have to do now in your Ember app. You'd have to add the rule of banner to a header element. You'd have to add the rule of main to the main content area, and the role of content info to the footer. We have this awesome, handy, optional feature. Now, I want you to watch this magic, because this is really magic. Look at how tidy our code became. Because with these native HTML elements as the direct descendant of the body element, they don't require those extra roles. So our code is more concise. Our code is more tidy. And that should make every developer in this room like, oh my God, I'm so happy about that. Like, tidy code is a happy place. So let's look at that again. So this is before, and that's what it can become. So I think tidy code is an Ember issue. I think accessibility is an Ember issue. I think we have the tools to do this. We have the technology to do this. It's time to do this. So, of course, I'm going to give you some handy things that I think you could do, that we could do as a community. Ember has led the way on many initiatives before. The good ideas in Ember end up in other frameworks. The good ideas in other frameworks end up in Ember. I believe this is one way that Ember can lead the way in the web community. We can do this. So here's when I would like to call us all to action. I'm like Dumbledore's army. Let's go. I would like us to consider some action steps. Contribute to existing accessibility add-ons. We have the channel topic A11Y in Discord. Come on in. Post your question. Talk about an add-on that you found, an add-on that you had that you would like evaluated. participate in the existing solutions that we're trying to build for the community. Learn how to use assistive technology. You have a MacBook, you have VoiceOver. You have a Windows computer, you have access to NVDA for Firefox, which is an open source, yay open source, screen reader. So I'd like you to look up, and I'll put these links online after the talk, but I'd like you to look up on Smashing Magazine, a talk that Leonie Watson gives, who is a technologist who is blind, and she walks through browsing the web with the screen reader. And she is an expert. She's been doing this for years and years. And she gives you exactly the experience that you need to see for how a person who needs assistive technology uses the web. So go look it up. Try assistive technology out. Take a few hours on a weekend. Take a few hours in your workday, like put it in your sprint somewhere, research. You can do this. Oh, and hashtag LinkedIn Life. We have those great in-days. Let's use them. Ask about accessibility at work. When you're reviewing code or you're doing your sprint planning or project planning, when we ask about all those tiny other little details, oh, hey, how are we making this accessible? Do we have any accessibility concerns? Can we put an HTML validator in our process? Ask the questions out loud, because I promise you, I have worked with so many people who it didn't occur to them to remember. So we must be the people who remember. We must do this. And the last thing I'm asking everyone here to do is to visibly support accessibility efforts. If you're on social media, look for the people in accessibility who are doing this work. Support them, follow them, retweet them, whatever them. Visibly show your support for this. I think we can do this. I don't think it's insurmountable, but I think we have to choose it on purpose. So I am putting a call and the responsibility to every single one in this room to do this, because we must do this. When I was at the Assistive Technology Conference last week, I was just kind of overwhelmed. It's a huge conference, like 4,500 people, and like Stevie Wonder comes, like it's a big deal. It really hit me while I was there, like, oh, this is a really big deal. I don't think I've seen so many people who are blind or people who require assistive technology in one place in my entire life. And I was kind of overwhelmed by it because they have all these stories after story after story. I'm just trying to pay my gas bill. I'm just trying to do my banking. You know, Ember is for ambitious applications, which means Ember is getting used in utility apps. Ember is getting used in banking apps. Ember is out there being used for these things. Now imagine if you couldn't do any of this stuff with any sort of privacy whatsoever. How would that make you feel? For real. And I think that we could be a lot more inclusive in our innovation by thinking about those people and what they need, and making sure that when we move the web forward, we're moving it forward for everyone. So, I don't know about you, but I need a drink. We are all a work in progress. And I don't want anyone to feel bad about this talk, but I do want you to feel a little bit of weight, a little bit of responsibility, because I think it's something that we can all share together, and we can do better, and we can move the web forward. I believe in us. Thank you.